Hello, hello. Hey guys, good morning. We're about to get started in a few minutes, so if anybody is in the hallway and can hear this, please come inside. All right, guys, before we get started introducing our speaker, I wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping rules, just for everybody to be familiar with them. So if everybody, I'm sure you're familiar with the layout, there's bathrooms right outside this hallway. You can go to bathrooms back there. Couple rules about the presentation: no videos, no pictures. Some of this stuff will be available online for the conference attendees after for a couple months. Silence all devices. Remember, we do have sponsors here in the sponsor lounge, so during break times, feel free to go over there and check them out. We have some IACP gear to buy as well. We do have face mask and COVID tests here on site, so if you feel like you need one, just let us know. We'll be happy to provide one for you. And if there are any concerns in regards to the conference, questions you may have, feel free to find a board member. Rick Alto is back there. Rick, there you go. He'll take any feedback you got. And then lastly, what we want to do is, I know we have a lot of dogs here at the conference, and so one of the things we've gotten some feedback from the hotel, let's keep them off of the furniture, off the couches and stuff like that, please. We know they can all do down and stays on the floor. So that's pretty much it. So I want to introduce our next speaker for today. And so Janet Edwards has been a big, she's kind of a big deal in PSA. And so she's won national championships at every single level of the sport. And so I am very happy to introduce her. She's been a mentor of mine for a couple of years. So Janet, you want to come up here? You ready?
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming, sitting in on my presentation. I appreciate the IACP having me out here. Speaking in this context is a little different for me. So having a specific time slot is new, and speaking a little bit more, into microphones and all that kind of stuff is new. So bear with me. I'm going to do the best job I can to stay on point, get you as much information as possible. And just share, my goal is to give you some new ideas, maybe some different thoughts when you're training some pet dogs, right? So when you're working through some problem cases, or just, avenues to, for more options, right? So because I am known on the working side of things, specifically more on the sports side, PSA. So I don't know if I have the right clicker. With me. There's no clicker over there, right? Okay, well, I didn't use this one yesterday, so I don't know if this one works, so we're gonna try. Arrow over, all right. I'm gonna give you a little information about myself. The worst part, I hate talking about myself, but because I probably am a new person to a lot of you guys, and I am known in the sport dog world. I didn't start there. It's not the bulk of what I do. So I have been training since 2001. Now it's the Tar Heel Canine Training School for Dog Trainers. It used to be North State Canine Academy back then. That's why I started. I started dogs. I got my first dog. I tried everything right. Animal Planet was a source of mine, and it failed me. I did do everything wrong, and it struck my interest in why. I didn't want to just go to a trainer at that point. I really wanted to learn kind of the whys and hows behind this stuff. So that's what got me into training, and that's how bad or little experienced I was with dogs. And 2001 was a bit ago. I think it's the entire life of my trainer, Cora, up here. I've been training dogs her entire life. And then I did train on my own a little bit there. I went to Tar Heel. They needed a trainer. They brought me on. I spent a good chunk of time there, you know, and I like mentioning that because at Tar Heel Canine, they have a lot of dogs. They have a lot of crazy situations, things that you will probably not see in most other places, in most other situations. So I was able to work and see with a lot of different cases, from pet dogs all the way to working dogs. It gave me some great opportunities. I then moved up to Pennsylvania. I met my husband. We dated a year long distance, then that's what brought me up north. And I still love the South, by the way. So I started State Line Canine there in 2011. Just started, you know, pet dogs, small little facility. Now I have moved up to an 11,000 square foot facility. We do some working dogs, we do pet dogs. I will never stop doing pet dogs. I love it. I still really enjoy that side of things. Hands-on. Basically, I don't really keep track, but I have worked with thousands of dogs, thousands of people between seminars, workshops, actually at training. So I've touched base with a lot of those things, evaluating a lot of teams, whether it's search and rescue teams, whether it's teams on, you know, the trial field, police teams, running certifications for those. So it kind of makes you work with, all of those things make you work with the people and with the dogs as well. And then because I'm touching on PSA and kind of the sport dog side of things, again, a little bit more of my PSA experience, I started competing in PSA in 2007. My first dog, probably around I think 2004, but my first competition was in 2007. That's when I started, stepping on the trial field. In that time, between now and then and now, I have won 4 national championships. I've titled 6 dogs. 2 of them are my own. 2 of them were not my dogs that I did put a title on. And then 2 dogs to a PSA 3. If you're not familiar with PSA or haven't heard, there's levels in the sport. So there's an entry level that you have to pass to get into the competitive or the titling levels. You have to show some basic control and training first. Level 1 is the beginning level of the titles, then level 2, level 3, they get more and more difficult as you go. PSA is pretty difficult even in the beginning level. It's a challenge. Not a lot of people, less than 30 people have taken a dog to a PSA 3. I have 2 dogs. Then the only handler, as Fabian was saying, to receive the Mount Everest Award. This award in PSA is winning nationals at every level with the same dog. Right? I did do that with my first dog. How I did it with my first one, I don't know. I just kept training. And so we did do that. So 3 of my championships were with one dog. The 4th national championship was with this guy right back here last year in level 1. He's a national champion. That first dog I had did get inducted into the PSA Hall of Fame. He did accomplish a lot in the sport. So we did get inducted into there. I've been judging in the sport since 2012. Kind of give a different perspective of things instead of just handling and training. And then since then, I've become the East Coast director of judges. Really just a lot of stuff is just kind of helping the sport. So that's enough about me. We're gonna get into sport dogs. Just to give a brief rundown of what PSA is. I know there's all different perceptions of sports. And yes, in the sport world, this sport's better, this sport's this sport's that. Honestly, they're all great in their own way, right? I chose PSA. Yes, I had the most opportunity to learn about that first. But But PSA was basically kind of designed, the short of it is to push trainers, to make it difficult on purpose, to push our training, make us see like what seems to be impossible, see if we can reach that. That was purposely intended when PSA started, as well as testing the dogs. And that is something the sport has been successful with. It will continue to evolve because training gets better, which is great news when it comes to dog training and dog trainers. It's impressive how much trainers have improved over the years from when I started. And that is the goal of PSA. We accomplish what seems to be the impossible, what seems to be a lot of chaos. It seems like it, but on the inside, it's just a lot of behaviors and the dog's working through a lot of different variables, right? And it is possible to train if you break it down. So that's what keeps me involved in PSA. Sometimes it is a love-hate relationship. I'm like, why do I do this to myself? It is really hard. Even though I've done it, I cannot say it's easy. But I like the challenge and I like continually being pushed as a trainer. And it does teach you to accept failure a lot. So what I'm trying to base here is kind of the big picture of like, what are some of the things we do with a sport dog, right? Some of the basics that might be applicable to pet dogs. When training a sport dog, some of the things that we do, like we must work the dog in front of us. And what does this mean? This means that we have to throw everything, including our pride, out the window. We have to work the dog in front of us. We have to know that dog, what drives that dog, what motivates that dog, what stresses that dog, what's going to create conflict with that dog, right? We have to know what that dog is in front of us. And if we don't, what happens if we don't do that? I will tell you, if you don't do that, there's a few things that can happen. You're going to wash the dog because now you can't train the dog. You've created issues, you've created conflict because you didn't work the dog in front of you, right? When it comes to doing a sport, you can ruin your relationship and the dog's training ability for that. If you don't take it to that extent where you need to wash the dog, you will be struggling. You will be struggling at the entry level when you step on the trial field. You will be struggling at every level and every point along the way. It may not seem like that in training, and you step on the trial field, and it all becomes apparent, right? So if you have to be careful and have to work the dog in front of you. We must have patience. In training in general, we have to have patience, right? That is something as a dog trainer we all learn. This just takes that patience to another level, right? I can't tell you how many times, people, they rush, like how young they want to put dogs on a trial field. Like, what is the rush? What are you going to do? Try to get all the way to the end, and then you have a young dog, then what? Like, you just rush the journey. Did your dog enjoy it? Did you enjoy it that much? Did you create more issues because you didn't have patience? Yeah, you did, right? That's why there's a lot of people that fizzle out by the time they get to the 3s. And a lot of times it's because they rush things, right? And also, I'll tell this where it's, in sport dog, you have club training, kind of like group weekly training, a couple times a week. We'll have training, and I'll have a club member just beginning their like really nice attention heels. I'll give them something to work on. Here's your basics, right? Maybe a week goes by, sometimes a couple weeks, and they're pulling their dog out, kind of looking at them, and they're doing all this heeling and turns and all these things, and I'm like, hey, like, did I go in a coma for 6 months, like, and miss something? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not doing what I asked you to. Now you're doing like 5,000 steps ahead. And they're like, well, because why? They got impatient. They didn't think they were doing enough on the little things I gave them. I'm like, there's a reason I gave you that, right? And it's hard as a trainer, because what do we want? We want to see progress. We want instant results. We have to see a little bit of outcome. If we don't, then guess what? We get greedy and we want a little bit more. And it doesn't work with a sport dog. doesn't. Patience to another level. We can't blame anyone else. It is often common that, and I know the majority of time it's true, when we work with clients and pet dogs and things fail, it's always the owner's fault. They're not following through, they're not listening, they're not showing up for the lessons, blah, 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 right? So it's easy when you're working with other people's dogs to point blame, right? Point blame on the dog's history, point blame on this, point blame on that. Well, you know, when you're raising a sport dog, ain't nobody to blame but yourself, right? So it forces you to blame yourself, but learn from your mistakes. And you learn it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. I will grow. I will continue. We will, we will proceed, right? We can't force anything. Most of these sport dogs, especially the dogs, being able to mentally handle what they need to do on the protection side, even the control side of PSA. The environmentals, the pressure, the things that they go through it's a lot. So if we try to force something with dogs that are mentally that strong, we're gonna fail. It's not gonna work for very long. The dogs are gonna give up trying to work. They might start coming after the handler, you know? Or you've just created a really hard dog that doesn't comply to much at all, right? They've just learned to fight through whatever to get what they want. Even if and it can give you false hope. If you step on a trial field and you're using, not, a lot of physical force, but using a leash to even guide them or food like whatever it is, you're making something happen because you are helping the dog with a tool of some sort. When you go on a trial field and you don't have a tool with you, it's going to be apparent, right? You're not going to pass. So you can't force anything because you can't fake it on a trial field, right? And when we say anything, that is behaviors, methods, relationship, right? And when I say behaviors, that's the easy thoughts, like the skills, the healing, the stays, all those things, right? And when it comes to obedience. The methods. I mentioned methods because there are some dogs that maybe it's just a really small portion of their training, that it's just what you usually do doesn't work. It could be a method, it could be a training plan, it doesn't matter. And I've been there. And I want it so bad to work. And then I'm like, and I'll have there's another method or another idea, and I'm just like, I don't like it in my head. And then I go, actually, I need to try it. And I learned with that dog, that specific thing was the best option, right? So I've even had recently, a girl I'm working with that's working on her competition healing. She's like, well, it was suggested for me to do this with the ball. And I'm like, yeah, no, don't do it. I hate it. And then I stop myself and I go, actually, no, do it. I think that is the best thing for your dog, right? And if it's gonna get the best results, you have to be willing to make that adjustment and make that change. It doesn't mean your whole progress, whole system. It just might be a specific skill or two, right? And then, I covered why not, right? It's going to fall apart. Things are going to fall apart on a trial field. It can do these things and look really, really good in training. And you can put out really nice videos on social media. But when you have all of those things on a trial field, all of anything you have forced will show up. You must be ahead of the dog. This is when we're working with dogs, it's easy, you get in a groove of kind of seeing when they're gonna make a mistake, when they're gonna start barking at another dog, maybe before they break a stay, those types of things. With sport dogs are intense, and to be ahead of your sport dog is not easy, right? But you have to be ahead of them before they make mistakes, because they are fast creatures and there's a whole lot going on. So you learn really well to know what's gonna happen before it happens. And that's really ultimately what makes you a really good handler on a trial field, So if you can be good at that, it makes you even more things with pet dogs. You will be judged and scored. We don't, when we work with pet dogs, I find we don't like to be judged. We don't like to be criticized or get opinions, even constructive criticism, right? We want to think what we're doing is right. We want to think it's the best. But this avenue opens you up. You literally have a judge scoring how well you do everything. And they're knocking off points, right? And then you get to hear about it. And then you have people on the sidelines judging you, right? It's not just the judge with the pencil and the scorebook. So you are purposely putting yourself out there to be critiqued. But it's good. It teaches you it's okay. It's okay, and it continues to give you a learning opportunity. I'm throwing this in here because this kind of goes back to, working the dog in front of you, what I first mentioned. When people get a sport dog, especially when they see the results of dogs that are on the field, dogs have, a lot more training going on, that's what they want. Or they see a particular dog or two that they really like, and then they want that dog, right? And I came up with this, with myself, my second dog. The second dog I had, I nitpicked like a couple stupid really things, and looking back, they were stupid things. I battled a little bit with some stuff. And then I had to make myself kind of realize this. The sooner the sooner you accept the dog you have, the sooner that dog becomes what you want. He didn't do what worked for him wasn't, for my first dog, wasn't working for him. Some little behaviors even on his working side. And anyone that knows this dog, now this dog is he's well known for how powerful and strong of a dog he was. So it seems really, really foolish that I even thought that. But what happened when I accepted him and learned how to work the dog in front of me, months went by and I was like, wow, he is so great and he is so perfect, and not really perfect, but perfect for me. And so what happened was when I decided to work the dog in front of me and be open and learn mistakes and learn to use different methods and things like that, then all of a sudden that dog became the dog that I wanted. So drive shaping. I'm going to talk a little bit about drive here for the training side of things. So building drive, we want to, with working dogs, this is really simple. I'm not getting into a lot of stuff because I don't have a ton of time and it gets boring listening to me yap. So building drive, we teach them to use their drive, right? So we're, got prey drive, and PSA for sport, it's a lot of prey drive, defense drive. We do some area search, so there's a little bit of hunting involved in there too that will pull out that drive. Then we have to teach them to channel that drive into the appropriate avenue. That avenue could be a certain reward, food, toys. Most of the time it's a toy because these dogs have a lot of prey drive. Specific decoys, right? I put specific odors because some sports with tracking or the retrieves with a handler's odor on it. Sometimes they do have to specify some odors. We don't really do that in PSA. But it is something in sport that you will do, is channel that drive into specific odors. So this is a video. As you see other videos kind of progress, I'm not a big social media person. I'm really terrible about taking videos, so I'm using the best that I got, okay? Just throwing that out there. I always think about training, and I never think about video anything. I'm guessing I hit the play button on this. So we're going to see if that works. So here, you'll see how much these dogs like to bite the decoy, right? So here he's channeling this drive. He has to learn to ultimately channel his drive into the reward toy. Nothing fancy going on. Maybe. Nope. Did you hit play? Yeah. I don't know how to hit play on this one, so. And you'll see, I left this, I thought this was a good part. You'll see that he struggles at first. Kind of know he's going to do it. He wants to go to the decoy, right? Nope. Tell him it's the wrong thing. So now he's taking out that drive on the toy. Again, it's simple, nothing going on, but that's how it all starts, right? And then my daughter's a great distraction here. Again, video is just what I happen to have. This is real beginning stuff. It's actually this guy a little bit younger on just decoy and taking a reward toy, just sitting in a chair, right? And a lot of these things that are laying around are things that typically, these noises, these distractions usually mean a bite's coming and the decoy's gonna start the action. So all of these things are like, what he's trained to do is channel it in the decoy originally, right? So now he has to learn to also channel it into a toy. So can we hit play on that? So just getting like little behaviors. My daughter really wants him to go through the tunnel. So ignore that, yes, we're doing some control work here. But in his mind, it's worth doing because he has a way to channel his drive, right?
Reese, stop.
All right, so ignore all the other stuff, even bite sleeves around and channel. I'm telling you to channel your drive onto a toy, right? This is a little more distraction. This is preparing for level 3. So now this is hard, right, for him to ignore the decoys at this point. But boom, he gets to channel his drive right into a toy, right? Now, these videos are showing the opposite end, what them being very excited about the decoy. So now we're like, remember we're capping here.
It becomes a lot harder. No.
Turns a little crazy. Obviously the dog's happy the whole time, wagging his tail. But we want to teach him, push through a lot, push through a lot. A lot of pressure here.
Butterfly guard. Ready? 1, 2. Here I come.
And then one more. And this is like a level 1 type of scenario for PSA in the middle here. So we're teaching them to take on a decoy and push through a lot of pressure, right? But then to ignore those decoys and when channel that drive onto a nice little ball instead of that is not the easiest task, right? This is just because it's cool. And it's my second dog with a PSA 3. But just how powerful he is, it just shows it's that much harder to control a dog like this, right? Comes in with everything he's got. So again, we're taking that craziness, right? So the same dog that's done this did the crazy stuff, now he's gonna have to control his drive a little bit, and then stay under control. So this video, so same, we got the decoy, we got a little environmental pressure going on, but you're not biting the decoy here, right? You have to come down and drive enough. Transport! Transport! So same dog that's flying through the air, launching at the decoy, fighting in a cage, like just knocking fence items out. Now, no. Don't go in like that. You got to go in and you got to stay with them and you got to be tempted the whole time. And you got to fight through that temptation and come down and drive, right? Then we say reinstating the drive when necessary. Then if I tell him to bite, I need him to bite. So now we're teaching build a drive, channel it where you need to. Now we're going to turn the drive on, all the way off, somewhere in the middle. Now we're steering that drive a little bit, right? So I'm going to put, actually, I'm going to test her out here. Plek. You're going to keep her on a place. Plek. I was going to put her in a crate to make it easier for her, but we're going to see. I'll keep 2 dogs under control. Hard, just to tell you. Gecko, up you. So with him, I'm going to show you guys just like in person, do a little demo of showing some control around a decoy, right? And channeling that drive. I see. Good. Up you. So Fabian's going to walk around, just be a distraction. And as you can see in the videos, you'll see what he actually really prefers to be doing. Up you. And even her staying on her place up there. Good. And he will channel the drive into a toy, right? But what we want is that he's having a lot of fun. He's happy, he's enjoying it, right? Good. Same thing, coming down and drive, dropping it on command. I see. Through. Good. Up you. Good. Crochet. And it's a little harder when we're away from our dogs. Like, imagine like you have to really control your dog around a high level distraction when you're away from them. E-collar or not. Good. He's struggling with this, so I'll see if I can get him. I see. Good. Good. Yes. Gecko. Yes. Good. Good. So it's a struggle for him right there to be like, oh, it's so tempting. Imagine if he was screaming and threatening, right? So we made this kind of easy, but that's an example. And you will get to see him. Well, we're going to show him actually get to bite him, right? Good. 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 All right, buddy. Go. Matt. Right. Good girl. And that was really hard for her. And we need a little food. All right, they're fine. with that. But initially, some of these dogs, Plek, are just seeing the bite suit, right? Or seeing a piece of bite equipment with a person involved is really, really difficult. So we are, I don't know, I put my clicker now. Here it is. So this is what we're doing with sport dogs, right? Oops, sorry, wasn't working, I don't think. I can't get it to go back. Okay, so attention, something we teach is attention, which you saw. We want eye contact, right? No matter the distraction, and keeping that eye contact in motion, right? It is required for the sport, so we're scored on that, but it's also really necessary. Because when I say you're ahead of your dog, I can see what my dog's mind is the whole time, right? If I can see his eyes, I can see also kind of where he's thinking, right? I can always stay ahead of my dog before he can make mistakes. Relationship, right? We have to build a good relationship with these dogs, right? Control without diminishing drive, right? We don't want the dog to be miserable. Like I said, when they were playing, we want them to be happy the whole time, enjoying the process, right? Trust. We have to build a level of trust to the extreme, right? To them, with a trust. Like, why is it worth following my lead despite your desire to go blast the decoy, right? To go engage with the most exciting thing in your entire life, that there's nothing else you like to do better. Why do you want to follow my lead, right? Why is it worth it? Especially on a trial field, in the level 3s and level 2s, you have nothing. Your dog's naked. You have no training equipment. Your dog's not even wearing a collar. You've got nothing on your dog. So how is it that you're going to listen to me and endure a lot of that pressure despite? So that's why we need to build that trust. What are keys in building a working relationship? I think, a lot of that, which we touched on, we're building trust. We're working the dog in front of us, right? We're not forcing them into our mold. We are taking them and building that dog to the best of its ability. Then we're just shaping how we're using how they're wired, right? That can build an amazing relationship, right? I don't know why it's not working now. It might have died. Okay, I'll just tell you. So this is a level 3 routine. So this is kind of the ultimate of all of those things: the attention, the control, the drive, capping the drive, and building a relationship here. This is not easy, right? This is the beginning part. I know some parts a little further. Here, they actually start bringing the dog in drive. So I put a flat collar and a leash on. The decoys agitate. They want to see the dog at the end of the line. But we're like, just kidding. We're not actually doing that. We're just going to do a lot of obedience now. So, it's very challenging.
You'll hear someone singing and be able to hold on.
So then I'm resetting. Obviously, I have to take all the equipment off, throw it on the ground. Then we're going to start into healing. So there's a good amount of healing here. Guys, gives you guys a little taste of what a level 3 obedience routine looks like. And here I couldn't hear, I forgot what I was supposed to do next. Level 3 is also a surprise. I have no idea what I'm gonna have to do for a routine until the day of the trial. So he has to call it out to me and tell me what to do. Same dog I was doing the little tunnel thing with. This is a much higher level of distraction, and this is how it pieces out, right? So it seems simple, a little more simple in the first
Ask it
video,
advance,
right?
walk through, you got it.
Now
Nobody's gonna care, right?
it's a lot more intense.
Thanks for asking.
I try to be polite.
It's pretty cool. You can watch right on your phone.
Yeah, well, I'm just using the gimbal from it, so it keeps it nice and smooth.
So we do a lot more healing here. We have turns scored, change of paces, all of those things. I'm gonna have to do a sit out of motion, meaning I sit the dog, but I keep moving, right? I leave them in a sit. Some decoys have pressure on them. I'm gonna have to recall to heel.
So it's nice and smooth.
So now I have to leave them in a down. This is a food refusal. So we build their food drive to get really nice obedience. Now it's like, I just don't eat it. Not in here. However, he does eat it. He rewards himself, loses all the points that he could get.
You know what you need? A clicker. If we had a clicker, and you could
But I was okay with that.
click.
So here I have to then tease him with another protection exercise. Send him into a guard.
I think you just sent your dog after it.
But I'm just calling him back. Nope, you don't get to have fun, right? So now I'm taunting you with drive that I built, but you don't get to use it. You still have to keep your drive in check.
That wasn't very nice.
Gonna heel forward.
Ball again.
Nice.
So now we're just building. This is enduring this level of pressure and keeping that drive under control for a long time through a lot of stuff going on. But he's happy, right? He's happy, he's content, he doesn't look miserable, and that's the goal here, right?
For a gimbal. Just keeps it nice and smooth. My hands are shaking.
So here a decoy is gonna get in the van, be a distraction. I'm gonna have to throw a retrieval item,
It's not bouncing.
which in PSA can be kind of almost anything at this level. I don't remember what it is. Maybe there was a hula hoop or something. And I'm supposed to send him in to retrieve it. I decide, I don't know that he's going to be able to control this drive and not go in that van and bite the decoy. So I decided to lose points there and not even attempt it, right? So this is kind of knowing your dog and thinking ahead of the dog, right? I knew where my point value was at that point if I could sacrifice those points. So that's kind of how that all plays in, right? Next slide. Hardness, softness. Can a sport dog be soft, right? If everybody should be pretty familiar with hardness and softness in dogs and how they respond to adversity, how they respond to corrections, right? The answer is yes, right? Because it just says they're soft to a handler doesn't mean they're soft to a decoy, right? Is a hard dog in sport more desirable? I guess it depends on the handler, right? But in reality, if you get a soft enough dog that has all the drive and nerve and all the other temperament to do the work, you kind of have it made. So a hard dog, also with a lot of drive, is a challenge, right? It's a big challenge to work with. So I would say, in my experience, no, a hard dog is not more desirable, right? But if you like the challenge, which I do, they can be desirable, right? Can you create conflict with both? I'm guessing you guys know the answer to this because it really kind of goes with pet dogs. Yeah, you can, right? And when it comes to sport, if you create conflict with a soft dog outside of work, like it's not detrimental, right? It is more of a problem if you create conflict with the hard pet, hard dog. It's working on pet or regular obedience. but you can create conflict with both. So again, it goes back, you've got to know your dog and work that dog in front of you. Getting the best response. We have to know how to get the best response because we can't create the conflict on either end of the spectrum if you're training a sport dog. So it really forces you to get the best response out of both ends of the spectrum. All right, next one. Evaluation. Throwing this in there because with sport, we're evaluating a dog or really a lot of working dogs in general. And we have to evaluate their drive, their nerves, and there's a lot of pressure to make the right call. Is this dog gonna work? Is it worth putting my hours and blood and sweat and money and years into this dog to be able to go on the trial field? Oh, yeah, it looks like it. I hope it does because now this person's counting on me to evaluate their dog properly, right? And because they are putting a ton of time into it. And to me, it's a lot more pressure than a police department that it's a little bit easier to wash dogs and recover those funds, right, in that time. But, the most of us, we're not a crazy rich pet dog trainers, right? Or just dog trainers in general. So it's like we invest a lot into the dogs that we pick to do sport with. So when we're evaluating their dogs, there's a lot of pressure in that. All right, next one. So we go into pet dogs. Like what are some thoughts that it applies to pet dogs, right? One thing I'm gonna throw in here, I'm gonna throw in one more little break for me speaking, is if working a dog in drive is a lot different, right? And I had an idea, and we'll see if this works. If you guys, if you don't have experience seeing a really high drive dog working in obedience, I was going to take a couple of volunteers and do a little healing with one of my dogs. Get a feel for what that's like, right? Building that drive, channeling it, balancing it, right? So she's pushy, she's clean. I'm gonna tell you what she's gonna do and not do because I've been working on something else, so we're gonna have to tweak the way we do it a little bit. But I can take a couple of people, I'm gonna tell you, I have limited time, so a couple of people that really, really, really wanna see what it's like to do a good attention heel with a high drive dog. If anyone's interested, not scared, then raise your hand, and oh gosh, I don't know how to pick this. I didn't think about this part. Keep your hand up if you have never experienced, like you have not been around sport dogs, right? This is absolutely a new ball game for you, right? I want you guys to have the opportunity to do this. Okay. Oh man, only one guy. All right, I'll have to take the one guy and we're gonna do, oh man, all these girls. All right, you're being shy, so I'm gonna bring you up here. You're the most shy about it, so. All right, you wanna watch him? I'm gonna mention while when you're moving up here, this dog in particular is, it took me a really long time to build a relationship with Alt and get her to work. Now, magically, I can do, now she'll work for anybody. And it just shows all the things that I talked about, working the dog in front of me, being open-minded, making adjustments, don't make her fit into my mold. Since she saw the decoy and Fabian moving around, I'm gonna play with her for a sec. Good. Good. Push. So, push. All right. Quick little instruction for both of you, right? All right, what I'm gonna have you do, yes, good, is she's probably, I've been teaching her to go through the legs for a transport, right? So why don't you float over this way a little bit? Legan, and so, why don't you go first? Now that she saw the decoy, you come over with me. Good. Good girl. Good. So grab her ball on the string and just play with her for a sec. Good. Just hold it still. Good. Let her. Good. So keep her in front of you. You're going to out her, which you're going to tell her Loesch. Loesch. Okay. So take the ball in your left hand. She's probably going to go through your legs. Okay. And tell her Foos. Oops. Okay. We're going to do that. Sit. So stand in front of her how you were. Now tell her. She's probably going to go through your legs. So take your left hand, put it behind your back, and put the ball in your right, switch it to your right hand. And hold that ball right there with your right hand. Now tell her with your left hand, give her a little hand signal, and tell her the same heel command. Yep. Okay, now walk. Tell her again. Now this is backfiring since she saw a decoy. All right. All right, we're gonna do something. Play with her again. Just good, good. So outer. L-O-S-H. Stop. Relax. No. Push. So now just start walking. Go walk that way. Tell her Foos. Tell her Foos. Put that ball behind your back and hold it straight in the middle of your back. Turn back this way. Keep walking. Tell her. There we go. Keep walking a little faster. Now tell her Y-E-S, and she'll grab that ball. Good. Down. Good. Good girl. Good. And she's going to play with you. Good. So you grab her string. She's going to be a little more wound up with you. So, yeah. Good. Good. So you're going to out her, which is L-O-S-H. Yeah. So now take your left hand and tell her F. Yep. Now walk. Good. There we go. Keep the ball right behind your back. She's trained to get it back there. You can make a turn. And then Y-E-S. Yeah, keep it right behind your back. Good. Good. Now she's kind of into, now she realizes there's not to be a decoy out, right? But it's a little more intense, it's a little more pushy. I think you've played with a dog before.
Yeah, once or twice.
Yeah, you look like this
Never
isn't as
worked,
new
guys,
to
so
you.
like-
Okay, good. Right. So to release the pressure on the string, now to ask her. She doesn't like, that's her hardest part. Good. There we go, good. The ball right behind your back, kind of in the middle. There we go. Good. All right, good job. Everybody give them a round of applause. It's harder to do than it looks. Right. Good. Push. Kennel. At. Kennel. At. At. Kennel. All right. Because he's going to bite, and I'm not going to have her make her sit there and watch that. I'm going to try to put her in a crate, but now she's all excited. Okay, so different, right? I want to give a couple people a chance to see that. You guys I know she wasn't quite into it the first time. She was like not clicking because she saw the decoy. So it took her a minute to kind of transition and know where she's channeling the drive, right? She struggles with that more. So normally she's just like what she was with him. How'd it feel? Good? Different? Like the intensity to want to do it correctly and push into it was a lot, right? So with pet dogs do have drive, right? We all know they have drive. We see these all in a state of drive. I'm guessing the first dog is, you know, we're just gonna guess it's excited and an animal moving or something, right? Next one, sorry, I keep going to my clicker. Drive shaping. Should we diminish drive or build drive? It's a good question, right? What do we normally do? Do we diminish it or do we build it? So typically we diminish drive. Is it always the right thing to do? Is it appropriate to channel the drive? And appropriate might have been the best word. What I'm thinking appropriate is practical, right? Practical would have been a better word here. Is it practical for us to have a reason to channel drive? I will say probably there's a couple really easy things that are common, right? When, you know, dogs that are mouthing, right? Give them a toy so they don't mouth you. We just channel it into something different, right? So there are some things we naturally do that are very common that we do channel that drive. We're gonna get into, I'm gonna kind of go over these and then get into some examples together. So we're gonna do the next slide. It's gonna be easier to do it that way, I think, as we kind of collect all these thoughts. Is drive capping the same as diminishing the drive? Is it the same? Another thing to think about, right? What is the difference of drive capping, right? In reality, drive capping starts off the same way in how we diminish the drive, but all we're doing in drive capping, and honestly that really wasn't as common of a term when I started training, right? You're just teaching the dog to come down and drive, right? But when we're drive capping, we are still going to use that drive, right? So we want to reinstate the drive. So really that's the difference, right? So we got to think about what are we doing? Are we diminishing? And when we diminish drive, what happens to it? I believe there's cases, in a lot of cases, we're just sweeping it under the rug. And we know how that works, right? What is a high state of drive for a pet dog? That's all the thing to think about. These guys are not the same as the average pet dog, right? The dogs we see in sport are not, it's not the same level of drive. But we all see high drive dogs as pets, right? Maybe they have a little much drive for people, you know, the average pet dog owner to handle. But to me, you know, what is high drive for a pet dog? Anything that's a lot of drive for that particular owner, right? I mean, honestly, that's really what it comes down to, because again, we have to think about the dog in front of us. Do they have enough drive to cap? Some do, yes, right? So, or you can kind of tell genetically there is some good amount of drive in there. And I'm speaking of drive, we're mostly referring to prey drive. Sometimes it is social drive, like the dogs that get like overly excited to see people, right? There's all kinds of drives that we're working with. What would we ever want to reinstate a drive with a pet dog, or do we rather just kind of keep it at bay? So these are all thoughts. Okay, think about it. I'm going to keep you thinking on it before I get into it more. All right, next one, attention. Is it necessary to teach a pet dog attention? Is it possible? Also, is it practical, right? To get the healing that you guys just got with that level of attention, or my first dog with a distraction, is that a practical thing to do with a pet dog in the amount of time we have them? Probably not, right? However, we we do have reasons for attention, right? But seeing this, what piece of that, what level of that can we use to our advantage for pet dogs, right? It is possible to do. Next one, relationship, okay? So can you establish the same relationship with the limited time that you have? What kind of relationship, right, are we establishing with pet dogs? What do you perceive as a good relationship, right? These are all things to keep in mind, that we kind of fixate on what method we're using, what the dog's doing, and going through the motions of our task and training, right? But sometimes we need to step back and think of all of these things. No, can you establish the same relationship with limited time? No, but I will tell you, if you don't establish a good enough relationship, you're treading water even with a pet dog. Everybody, you know, like when my trainers over the years of, you know, working with trainers, when their dogs are in a training program, they really feel pressured on the crunch for time. So sometimes they force things and they don't work on the relationship and work on the dog in front of them. If you do that, I tell everybody, just trust me. Build your relationship. The rest is smooth sailing. Or you're going to tread water the whole time through the process, and you're probably going to get not as good of a result, right? The end part of the training goes a lot faster if you build the trust with the dog, build the relationship, work the dog in front of you, right? And you should think of what you perceive as a good relationship, right? Yes, you're not going to have your dog doing a level 3 routine like in the video, or your client's dogs, I should say, not your dog, your client's dogs. I'm not either, by any means, but I have to know what a good relationship is with that dog that I'm working with, and really think of those things, because it's not always what we want it to be. It has to be what that dog thinks it is. So really the answer to that is a good relationship is what the dog perceives as a good relationship, right? They all have different desires. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm going to touch base on, I forgot what slide was next. All those things I mentioned, right? So now I think of examples of, I'll tell you a client I had with this bulldog. They were struggling with some things. It was kind of early in the training, and so I kind of stepped in. You know, our trainers were working with the dog, and I'm talking to the owners. Well, this dog had a lot of drive, right? It happened to have a lot of drive, and things in motion on walks would stimulate the drive and get him in a high state of drive, right? So we knew that. But then when I'm talking to the owner, a really quiet lady, and she's like, yeah, you know, there was, you know, a couple rabbits, they took off running, and then he got he got excited, and so he turned, and he channeled his drive, right, to her. She's like, I was wearing a sweatshirt, and he jumped up, and he grabbed my sweatshirt, and he was hanging on it. I didn't know what to do, so he just hung on it the whole rest of the way home. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we should have led with this before we started to train. I'm like, that's a little extreme. That is a high state of drive for a pet dog, any pet dog, right? So in that case, and then he's a bulldog on top of it, so you guess how they are, not soft dogs typically, right? So now you have a dog that's not soft, and he has a lot of drive, right? So what do? Do we diminish that drive? No, because we're just going to butt heads and butt heads and butt heads and butt heads. So what can we do? Build the drive. Because if we build the drive to the right channel, then we can introduce capping that drive. We can introduce channeling that drive to the proper state. We had another dog that was similar. It was a rescue dog that we took in because they just, you know, we do have a couple rescues when it's like last straw, we need your guys' help, right? Another dog that was very extreme. We got to the point where she would just take it out on the ball, right? So if so some of these dogs we want to jump into force. Well, what'll happen is sometimes when we're trying to diminish drive, we're actually holding a dog back, and then we're actually in a roundabout way building the drive, right? So if we're not careful and we're not perceptive of what we're doing, then we can create a more difficult problem. And think about it this way, is a dog like that, or any dog that just, I mean, how many times do we run into people that have dogs that they chase animals, right? I mean, let alone the distractions of people and other dogs, right? It could be a defensive drive, right? And we can be really good at controlling that dog and keeping its mindset proper before it kicks into drive, right? Owners are not good at it, right? Just think about how many owners do just a superb job. Oh, you're great. I trained your dog, now you're great, you're ahead of the game the whole time, it works perfectly. No, 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 we get problems. The dog gets in a high state of drive, and guess what? It doesn't come down. And then we blame the owners. But they shouldn't know how to bring a dog down well in a high state of drive. It's hard. If it's hard for us, it's hard for them, right? So think about it that way. If you can tell that owner to pull out a toy, they probably can succeed at that a lot better than trying to diminish the drive or cap it too much, right? But then they can practice drive capping. Come up for the toy, come down. Come up for the toy, come down, right? So in this event, the dog gets a little more in drive on the problem areas, it's more likely to respond because the owner has practice. They build a relationship with this, right? And even while I mentioned we already naturally kind of try to channel drive into, mouthy puppies, right? What I run into is the old, all the steps of really mouthy puppies, right? You get a little drivey, your cattle dogs, your Australian Shepherds, your German Shepherds. Now, unfortunately, we have a lot more Malinois that are pet shepherds, right? So, well, yelling at the dog does nothing. Even labs, they're like, yeah, I got attention, right? So that does nothing, which we've all kind of, as training progressed, we're learning that, right? Now, correcting the dog usually does nothing, right? Because owners don't know how to do it correctly, and we shouldn't expect them to. So then we go to channeling. It is the easier path. However, even as a little, before they ever got picked up to their new home, those puppies are probably mouthing the people there, the breeders, right? The people that worked with the dogs, and then they're mouthing, and they don't care because it's an 8-week-old, perfect little puppy, and it doesn't hurt, right? So then you try to channel that drive into something else, and guess what? They don't do it. Why? Because little Grogu over here isn't nearly as fun as you are. They've got a lot more satisfaction out of it. So how do you fix that? You gotta build drive to the right thing. So I've spent more time working with the puppy owners that have really bad biting problems, that teaching them how to build the drive the dog has and channel it into the right avenue, right? And it's a lot easier, right? Then we can use that to more and more things. But sometimes we think we want to do it, but we forget we can actually, they're like, oh, they're not interested in the toy. So we're going to go straight to obedience, right? Obedience is necessary, but sometimes if we can build a drive and channel it in the right thing, it actually makes our job and the life of the dog and owners a lot easier. So something to think about, right? With sport dogs and the human side, right? The side most of us dread, right? I will say though, I do love my pet dog clients. Maybe I'm odd, but I actually really like my clients. I like that side of it as well. But things that I have kind of taken perspective of the human side and the sport dog side is this. So go ahead and do the next slide. A thought on this: does a sport dog experience give you any advantage? I feel like we missed one. Oh, nope, okay. Maybe I'm out of it. Sport dog experience give you any advantage to working with pet dog owners? Yes, it does is the answer. So now we go into the next slide. Okay? Human interaction, right? It reminds you of challenges. Just like I mentioned, we know that it's really difficult to control dogs in a high state of drive. We fail a lot. We make really stupid mistakes as sport dog trainers all the time. I make mistakes. You know, if I try something different, I can look, or at least I feel like I look this way, that I've not handled a dog before. I'm like, I swear I've done this before. Just because it's different, right? It's out of routine. I work a different dog, and I'm like, this dog's not responding to what I'm used to, right? You get a dog that's out of the ordinary. So I think it keeps us in perspective of what the pet dog owners have to go through, right? And it helps us know how to teach them better and not just put blame on them, right? Excuses. Sport dog people do have excuses, just like pet dog owners. I will tell you that, right? There's excuses under the sun, but it doesn't get you a title, right? So you learn that you can't make excuses on even the human side of things, right? You learn that you have to figure it out. Laziness, right? We all kind of encounter pet dog owners that are lazy, right? You're just like, oh, walk your dog. Like the fenced backyard is not, it's not a treadmill for them or anything. It's not like they're exercising. What do they do all day in it, right? They're not exercise. So they're not getting what they need. But sport dog people are lazy. It's easy. I think it puts you in perspective where it's easy to get lazy. It's easy to get lazy in training. Even I'll give you maybe it's not the best example, but my first dog, as training progressed, and he is very compliant off leash, very compliant to the e-collar, I was lazy. Why put a more collar? Why grab a leash? Why do this, right? So I can pull him out and whip him out. Well, guess what started happening? My training started getting looser. So gradual, I didn't realize it, right? And then Jerry Bradshaw was my mentor. He came in, he's like, when's the last time you put a leash on? Good question. I don't know, I just haven't felt like it. I didn't have a good reason. And he's like, would you put a leash on the dog? So he tightened him back up, and I'm like, yes, sir. And magically it worked. So I got lazy because it was easier, right? So I put it in perspective that it's easy to do. And it makes it makes me a lot more understanding and forgiving of pet dog owners that get lazy. And it, helps me get creative in ways to motivate them, because I have to constantly motivate myself. Honestly, training a sport dog all the way from beginning to a 3 is exhausting. I run a business, I have a family, right? It is not an easy task, but if I get lazy, it's gonna show. And I have to make it work, but I can't spend my life all day long training either, my dogs. So I get creative on ways to make it work. It helps me get creative on ways to encourage pet dog owners to not get lazy, right? Same with leniency, right? Kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said, not getting too lenient on things, right? Because pet owners get lenient, and then their dog didn't just one day forget how to do obedience and have manners, right? It's because the owners got lenient, right? It's the same thing with us. We can get lenient on some things with sport dogs, but when you're experiencing it regularly, it's so much easier to have an understanding with pet dog owners. Realistic expectations. We struggle with this with pet dog owners all the time, right? They always want something unrealistic. However, we do the same thing with our own dogs. And it's funny when you start kind of realizing, and I do workshops for PSA, and I'm like, hey, you're giving me excuses, you got lazy, you have unrealistic expectations, and you're a dog training professional. You know what I mean? Like, you do this as a profession. But hey, I've done it too, so let's take this into perspective. We all do it, right? And same thing of blaming the dog, right? Like I mentioned earlier, we can't blame our dog if we fail on the sport field. We want to, and they do try to blame decoys, then judges, right? But it doesn't work. Ultimately, it's your fault, right? You're in charge of your own dog's training. Mistakes happen when humans are involved. So I think it just makes us not get super quick to react to those things, right? And helps us with some pet dog owners. Next one, which is the last slide here. But conversely, this is kind of what thinking here, like, does pet dog training help with sport dog training? I throw this in here because like I said, I didn't start with sport dogs and working dogs. I was a pet dog trainer for, I got into training for at least a couple years before I got my first sport dog, right? And at Tar Heel, when I was working there, I would instruct students. It was a battle with students learning, here's how you lure a sit, here are timing, markers, da-da-da-da-da. And then there's like, oh, there's the police officers doing detection and these high drive dogs and da-da-da-da-da. Well, guess what's more exciting? So I have competing motivations, and they're all like floating away. And I'm like, hey, but I stress, I'm like, guys, you don't understand, like, I cannot tell you enough that my experience doing this helped me succeed in the sport dog world. And I thought it would be a good thing to mention, because everyone here, it's like, if you haven't been in this world, you don't have to start there. Like, what you've experienced so far will help you, right? Just like the sport dog will help, I believe it does help you with pet dogs, working with these dogs. So it doesn't make you an automatic sport dog trainer, but reading the dog, understanding consequences of behavior, all the things you learn and already know, you can put it to just a higher level, right? But sometimes it's intimidating, and you feel like, oh, I should know more because I've trained dogs for all these years, and I should know more. And when I step into the working dog world, and I step into handling a sport dog, no, you shouldn't know more, right? We still screw up no matter how many years we've been doing it, all the people involved in the sport. So but what your experience can help you evolve into something, another avenue, a more challenging area as a trainer, if it's something you desire, right? So I did that just so it's not, because sometimes it is intimidating when you see people succeeding. I don't forget all the times I screwed up and had no idea what I was doing. I tell people all the time. I remember even as, I trained pet dogs, and then, working some police dogs, and they're like, notice that change of behavior? And I'm like, yeah. And in my head, I'm going, no. That was when I was a first initial student. I knew nothing. But going 2 years later, I work with all these pet dogs. Now when they go, oh, you notice that change of behavior? I'm like, I do. It's a new avenue, right? But I notice it. Why? Because now I've been reading dogs for 2 years, maybe not for the same reason. So it is extremely helpful, right? I'm going to finish with, I got a few minutes for questions. So we can do that. And then we get to see Gecko bite. He was falling asleep because he's given up on the hope that something exciting was going to happen. All right, so we'll take a few questions. I have one up front here.
Can you explain defensive drive a little more?
Yeah, so defense drive, what triggers, I was crunched on time, so I'm glad you asked that. So if you think about what triggers defense drive is a threat, right? Some of these sport dogs actually have a decent amount of defense in them. It's not all prey. Those dogs are a little harder to channel that into an appropriate drive as far as a relationship with me, okay? So, and it goes into even, is it necessary to build that, right? Because we don't want dogs loading up on strangers and being unsocial and being defensive all the time. So an example is Gecko here, a lot of prey, but he does have a good amount of defense, right? I saw it early, but what drives him even to engage with me is a little more challenge for the toy, a little more threat. Now, I'm not seriously a threat, right? He's my dog, but if I make it fun that way, and I make him feel like there's a little challenge involved, then he's more apt to enjoy me, right? So I can't be the same level as a defense and a threat as a decoy, ever, right? And the ball's like, no, your defense drive's coming a little stronger. So even just like the dogs at Growly, they fight a little bit. Those are kind of defensive measures, right? So sometimes we can kind of teach them to channel that into fun fighting in a sense, right? It doesn't seem real. And, take it out that way. Even for him as a puppy, I had to ask somebody about it because I was like, I don't know what to do with this. It's a little different for me. And I taught him to be easy because he was just so, and I'm like, I don't want him to hate me, right? So I just taught him to be like easy, but his reward for kind of settling was me, getting to kind of fight with me a little bit. And then settle, and now your reward is fighting with me a little bit. But it's we have a healthy relationship, so it's kind of roundabout way of doing it. But that's, those are a little example, if that's helpful, of, defensive drive and using that a little bit to our advantage, right? Another question?
Yeah, maybe a silly question, but I'm curious about your, for competition, your fading of equipment. Is that basically done on trial day? You just take it off and say, let's go? Or do you fade equipment slowly leading up to trial?
Honestly, that's a good question. He's asking about equipment, right? Like, how do I just pop off my equipment and step on a trial field, right? It is, kind of really all the things I talked about, building that relationship. I wear my equipment all the time, right? But I'm not using it a lot, right? Even here with stuff going on, not using it much, but they wear it so often, they don't really pay attention. Is it on, is it not on? And I get the response, and I feel that relationship, right? I don't do a ton of exercises of on and off and multiple collars. Some do multiple collars and take them off. I've never struggled with a dog. I do that with prong collars a couple times because that's a little bit more obvious, like, cha-ching, it's coming off, right? So I'll throw a couple prong collars on and just make sure they're not like, I'm free, right? And go, nope, same game. Never had a problem, right? So the biggest thing is I wear it all the time. It's just part of their daily routine. So, and I can also enforce things when I need to, when I'm developing stuff, and then they just don't think about it.
So I was just wondering your opinion on dealing with dogs that have like bite histories with dogs, other people, and if there's sometimes a point where you maybe don't want to increase their drive, or if there's certain activities you would stay away from just because you maybe don't want to open that Pandora's box.
Yeah, good question. So obviously it's a case-by-case basis, but some of those dogs actually teaching him how, like when I say, started, and I said the first slide of building drive is teaching him how to use it, right? So now some dogs, we actually do want them to teach how to use their drive, right? If we can teach them how to like pull out their prey drive versus their defense drive and the prey drive is a lot less stressful, okay? So sometimes we'll, work on prey, and see if we can build that, because then again, we're not fighting with a beast. Now we can, we can channel it. They can carry a toy around. They can bite that instead, right? Then we can start shaping those things, right? They all don't have it, enough of it, but sometimes we can do that, and it makes everybody's life a lot easier, and the dog actually comes down. It actually, not getting too much into it. And there are avenues for you guys to learn about drives and stuff, right? So I encourage you to do that, right? So but it can start kind of raising their defense threshold a little bit where it doesn't take as much to threaten them. It kick them into defensive drive, meaning they don't feel threatened as easily, so they stay in prey drive in a calmer state of mind better. Okay, probably, one more question, and then we'll gecko bite.
For pet dogs with a lot of prey drive or defense drive, but not a lot of toy drive, are there any games that you would do for channeling into food, or would you focus on building toy drive?
If some of these dogs, if they do have a lot of prey drive, it's too much competing motivation for food, right? Even if we starve them, you know what I mean? Not really starve them, but you know, my female's a good example. Like I said, I battled with her. Her food drive is not the strongest, right? Her prey drive is really high. And I was like, okay, you're only eating. I take her in a room with literally nothing. Here's some kibble, you know, 3 days of that. And I'm like, this isn't working. I'm not going to starve her. I'm going to work the dog in front of me. So yeah, I would say it's not easy because they're used to the outlet using that prey drive in a different manner. So now they haven't started using it the right way from the beginning. So it will take a lot of work and some patience and determination, but we can take that prey drive and build it and teach them to use that drive in the right way. So if that's their better drive and the food drive just isn't gonna be enough, then yes, that's a good time to use prey drive, right? But it doesn't happen just because we wiggle something in front of them. If you have cases like that, reach out to some people that have experience building it, right? I think a lot of dog people like to help other people, right? So encourage kind of getting a feel for those things. Even if you're not into sport dogs, kind of watch and learn how they, you know, maybe work puppies at club and stuff like that and how they start to build those things, okay? All right, so also I'll probably put my dogs back and stuff, so a little gap between that and lunch. I'll hang out at the sport dog committee table. So you guys, I'll hang out there for a little bit today, and I'm sure you'll see me around, but if you have other questions and get a chance to ask a question, I'll be there for a little bit. You guys can stop over, pop in, and ask some questions. All right? All right, little boy. So this is reinstating drive. He's obviously not in much state of drive at all, unless you want to call like relaxation drive. So now we got to teach him it's time to come back up into drive. Also, we don't have a lot of, I didn't bring like crazy distractions, but Fabian will get a little vocal. So everybody that has dogs, this could trigger their drive, defense, whatever, their nerves. So we want to be really careful of that. And if you feel like your dog is getting reactive or worried, then you might want to step out of the room. All right? Break. Yeah. Good boy. Get go. Up here. Good. Ah. Just charge. You can charge and I'll send him. So a drive, we call that a drive, is bringing him, it's a defensive, right? That's a threat in his spatial pressure, right? Good. So take a lot of that, he's in a higher state of drive. Then when the decoy stops threatening, stops moving, right? We're making all the triggers go dead. I will ask him then to let go. Alt. Right? So now come back down and drive, right? So I can either ask him to come back up on drive on command, which I'll do this time. Boom, right back on drive, right? So this time we'll freeze up, good. Alt. Alt. Good. Now, he can bring him back up and drive by either putting a threat with defense, right, or escaping and that's a little bit triggering prey. So either drive can kind of go into play here, and if Fabian can pick what he wants to do. So we call this an out and guard. He's guarding, and he should stay there till either thing happens. Yep. Right. Freeze up. Good. Up. Good. So what I was doing with my female, she liked to go between the legs. This is what I've been working on. I've been doing it with a toy, which is a lot lower state of drive, with both of them. Are you okay if I put him in between your legs for transport? He's never gotten dirty there, so as I say, never. Good. Transport. Good. Decoy move out. We can only go a few steps. Now dip down and give him and make more obvious, like, good, there we go. See there, he's like, wasn't sure there was a threat and not a lot of movement, so it didn't reinstate his drive because it's not supposed to at this point, right? Good. But that's what I've been working on. Doing that with a full suited person is a lot harder, right? He's 4, yeah. His last year was his first year on the trial field. At 3, we did our PDC, 2 legs of the 1, then showed at nationals. Okay. Alt. Alt. He put a little more pressure on him there, so he was like a little more hesitant to let go, right, and come down and drive. So if we do transport, decoy move out, at. See, now he's gonna get dirty. You knew what I was gonna do, didn't you? I taught him on the flee to escape, but couche, good. That is, yeah, I think that's good. And then come back down and drive here, right? Again, now he's making it look easy, but trust me, this is not easy task, right? This is much harder than a dog that likes to chase rabbits, right? And I can tell owners when they're like, I'll never be able to call him off of a rabbit. And I'm like, listen, if I get him to call off a decoy screaming at him, you know what I mean? Like, just think of that greyhound, like luring, chasing that rabbit. Even if you put a little more space on that, do you think if you were just like, hey, greyhound, come, he was just gonna, oh, okay, come, right? Not easy task. That's kind of what we're dealing with. At these high, especially we get in the 3s, is call-offs are really, really hard when we have to stop our dog from biting, right? Because the decoys put a lot of pressure. So it does help me, because there are pet dogs that are really, really, really hard, right? It's a tough battle. So, but I can tell owners, oh, yes, we can get there. I have done it. So, yeah, you're good. You can hood off. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I hope it was helpful. You enjoyed it. And I'll be around if you have questions. They clap for you, Gecko. Oh, okay. Hup. Okay. And he loves me. You knocked the microphone out.